Who here knows what alpha blending is? Okay. Basically, you can have a color that's partially transparent. So if an object with partial transparency is drawn on top of another object, you'll see that here, like with this ball, you can see through it. But the ball image isn't necessarily designed as a transparent image. It's just that the rendering algorithm it combines both the foreground and background. I want to have hardware collision detection, so you don't have to go manually check every pair of objects to see if they're colliding, because that just takes a really long time. Isometric tiling. You guys know what isometric tiling is, right? It's basically where it's rotated 45 degrees and it looks like there's a 3D effect. So you've seen this in some games like Age of Empires and StarCraft and whatnot. I want to have rotation and scaling of sprites and also tile layers. And not just the 90-degree stuff we've seen earlier, but fine rotation like 360 degrees, any of those degrees, any of those angles. I like to have support for the larger Arduinos. Who here has used an Arduino that's bigger than the Arduino Uno or Leonardo? Like Mega, Duet? No one? No. I actually haven't either, but I imagine it'll be pretty fun because they have a lot more memory and you can build a much bigger game. And also, I'm considering adding composite video support. So you can plug it into your TV. Right now, it just plugs into your monitor. So even if you have a TV, you might not have a video input, a VGA input. Even if you do have one, it's probably in the back. And it's a lot easier to plug into the little composite video on the side. So if I added all these, just think of possible games that could be written on Duino Cube. Something like this, something like this, or this, or this, or even this.
Yeah.
Remember these games?
Yes.
I didn't beat that one yet.
I don't think I ever did. Alright, how can you help? Write some games for Duino Cube. So that's the main reason I'm here. I like to find some users for my product and have a little community and environment going. And I would also like to get it on Kickstarter so that we have a much bigger community and user base. So if you can actually produce a good video for a Kickstarter ad, then come talk to me because I could really use that kind of support. And there was supposed to be another demo in there, so let me actually have to look there we go. So this looks superficially like the previous demo with the landscape, except the landscape is moving. Instead, I took a little sprite from the second demo, and now I can move it around using the gamepad. And this is really just any plain old USB gamepad. It doesn't have to be anything specific.
Do you have inputs for like dual axis?
I'm sure I can support that. I just got a dual access gamepad today, but I haven't tried it out. So it really depends on what the interface looks like. Right now, I'm doing too much other stuff to really look into that.
Think this would work?
Oh wow! Well, let's find out.
USB adapter.
Whoa! Where'd you get this?
Online. They made it.
Now it's like you're playing an actual SNES.
Yeah.
Wonder.
Restarting the system.
Might need to do key mapping.
Oh,
there we go. Sweet.
Except, I actually designed it to use both L1, R1, and L2 and R2. So it doesn't have enough on there, but I can.
Just hit the button, see which one it is.
the button mapping is a little different.
But the movement works straight out of the box. That's kind of
Yeah. There's a little bit of glitching, as you can see. There's a vertical line. I don't know why it's there. I'm focusing back in. Sometimes the glitch is there and sometimes it's not. I really don't know why. So right now, you can see that this thing is above the ground, but it's going below the clouds. I meant to get it to go above the clouds as well, or be able to, but I couldn't get that to work. Nonetheless, I can actually make it go a little here. So here it's gone below the grass layer. The ground is basically 3 layers. The bottom layer is the sand. The second layer is the buildings, so the walls and everything. The third layer is the little objects. So right now it's above the ground, above the walls, but it's below the little object layer. Let's go down one. Now it's below the second layer. And then now it's completely gone. Yeah. I put this together like 2 hours before this presentation, so I haven't had time to fix all the bugs. I meant for it to be above all the other layers, so you couldn't actually have it go below the lowest layer. Here's something else.
Something off by 1 layer then. Can't get every cloud.
Yeah, pretty much. Something like that. I can switch to the different.
Fence move.
Quickly rotate to the different images in the sprites. It's the same sprite object, just use a different image offset. And really, to change it or to animate it, you just gotta rewrite one register.
Can you do that with tiles? Tile animation? Like
Yeah, you can do that too.
Okay.
It's just a matter of how many tiles you want to animate. You can also change the orientation. And all these operations are just one right. Yeah, and to change the location of the camera or the scrolling of any of these tiles, that's also an X and Y. That's right, 2 values. To redraw to animate, to move things, to redraw things, it really doesn't take a lot of writing. You just gotta write a handful of bytes. Yeah?
Yeah, so you mentioned changing the sprite offset. Like GBA, is there also a concept of like 8x8 mode, 8x16 mode, like the different sprite mode to decide like how large the sprite is, how many tiles it takes, or is it just one image?
Right now the way I have it is the offset is just a straight up byte offset.
Okay.
But I really don't think that's going to work because I'm going to run out of space. It's a 16-bit register. I'm only going to support 64K that way. Doesn't work.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, so I'm gonna have to find some way to. It'll probably be a multiple of 8x8. So
yeah,
whatever the value
that's
is.
how the GBA does it, right? It takes if you put it in like 8x16 mode, for example, it'll
Okay.
take the next 2 sprites in the offset and draw them vertically and stacked.
And if you remember from the previous sprite demo, there's big sprites and there's small sprites. So
Well,
these
actually,
all-
I can't do it partway through.
Oh,
so-
okay. Yeah, I can back up.
That's not that big a deal. I was just wondering.
No, it shouldn't be too hard. Because right now I'm only showing a 32x32 sprite, but there's a 16. There's a bunch of 16x16 sprites as well. There you go.
Okay.
So you see the shield and armor, but there's also these little hearts and jewels and whatever. And I do plan to support 64 by 64 and 8 by 8, and also a combination of those.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. All right, that's pretty much it. Any other questions? Yeah?
Do you have any like simulators or emulators so you can like create games without having the hardware?
I wrote a very crude emulator. This was back in like April. I haven't had time to work on it. Yeah. Why? Why do you ask? You want?
Because like I develop on the iPhone and like they have a simulator and like you don't have to deploy directly to the iPhone, you just like deploy it on your Mac or whatever.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so.
Yeah.
So back to previous question regarding sound. Like, how is sound generated with the Duino Cube?
Are you talking about in terms of hardware?
How would the programmer?
Yeah, like how would?
I haven't thought about how exactly I'm gonna do it. So at a very basic level, I could just have say a register where you write say 100, and that becomes a period of 100 clock cycles.
Yeah.
And that gets translated into a tone, which is alternating at that period. But I know there's something called chiptunes, but I don't know that much about it. Yeah. You guys know about it?
Yeah.
It's kind of how they originally did it.
Okay.
It's originally how they coded music for old games.
Yeah. So maybe I could support having an entire buffer where you just write chiptune data into it, and then have a little audio player that generates audio on several channels basically. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's the other thing I was gonna ask. GBA has both like the old like G square and like triangle and noise channels. It also has a wave channel that you can DMA wave data to. Is there gonna be support for like something like that as well, or like actual direct sound?
I think it's doable. I think it's possible to do that using the coprocessor. There's a coprocessor that actually has its own little interface to the core. So that is definitely an option, but like I said, I haven't implemented any of this yet, except for the circuit. You had a question? Another one?
Yeah, I was just wondering, would you ever consider like if that's not an option, would you ever consider like putting like an old FM chip on the Duino Cube and having that be like part of the music synthesis?
How would that work?
I don't know. I'm not really.
Is that a radio thing?
No, I mean like it.
Synthesis, like the Genesis has like a OPN chip.
No, I really want to reduce the number of chips, or keep it to a minimum. So I think I have plenty of space on the FPGA, and I could definitely add something. I could definitely program my own little sound chip integrated into that.
Okay.
How do you see this, like you mentioned that you want to do like a Kickstarter kind of thing. So how do you see it like in the space where it's competing with other like game adapters for things like say Game Duino and things like that?
So Game Duino is the only similar adapter that I know of, and Game Duino, the difference between my system and Game Duino is in several ways. So first of all, Game Duino uses an older Xilinx architecture, which I believe has a longer memory read time than the newer one that has a single clock read, so it can do things a lot faster. And also, Game Duino uses only the internal memory of the FPGA. Mine uses external memory, so whereas Game Duino only has one background layer, I can have 4. Things like that. Were we thinking about any other types of systems like Lua?
No, I was just thinking like you had mentioned wanting to do things like systems like collision already, like in there, and I think the Game Duino like does built in.
Yeah, I know it does.
Okay.
Yeah, but I'm not doing that just to compete with Game Duino. I wrote a Space Invaders. Well, I ported a Space Invaders game to my previous prototype, and it was originally written with brute force collision, where every object is testing every other object and figuring that out. We're going to do that on an 8-bit system running at 16 or 8 megahertz, which is a nightmare. Yeah.
You probably only use spatial partitioning.
Yeah, I did.
Over sorted by size.
Yeah, well, fortunately, Space Invaders, you have a regular array of aliens. So that's what I used.
Okay.
But then, it's still a challenge to have to convert all that code and then make sure that collision takes place in a short enough amount of time. Anything else?
Applause.
If you're interested in working on this and writing games for it, come and talk to me afterwards or something like that.
Well, this is afterwards.
Okay.